Hello, welcome back to the channel of nonsense. It's something slightly different today. I'm here at BMW's headquarters in the UK, sadly not to drive this rather beautiful M1. I mean, just look at that, it's a classic, isn't it? No, I'm here to drive the slightly controversial looking new BMW M3. It's raining outside, so I'm going to do a bit of filming and a bit of a walk around indoors, and then we'll go for a drive. Sadly, it is wet, so we'll see what it's like in the rain anyway. It's the rear-wheel drive version, not the four-wheel drive one. And yeah, let's crack on and see if it's any good and if it's worth buying, even if you don't really like the looks. In some ways, I think the BMW M3 is a bit like pizza. Everyone's got their own idea of what makes a good one. If you're a recent convert to the brand, you might like the unexpected spikes of turbo torque that spit you into the nearest hedge. Or if you're an old school purist, you might like the naturally aspirated straight six from the M3 CSL or the rip-roaring V8 from the M3 GTS. But anyway, this is the new one and it's still turbocharged.
The heart of any great M3 has always been its engine, whether it's that one, the CSL, or the V8 from the E90. They've always been classics, or nearly always. What we've got here is a brand new 3-litre straight six, still twin turbocharged. It's called the S58. It's up 60 horsepower on the previous generation, so it's 510, it's up 100 newton meters of torque to 650. It's lost the dual clutch gearbox from the old one, which used to sometimes snap the back axle into a shock and skid out a little bit. It's now got a torque converter, it's an 8-speed. It's lost that really sexy carbon boomerang strut brace that we used to have in the old one for this, which bolts to an aluminium shear plate underneath the cast to send all of this down into the chassis or something. What we really want to know is, does it sound any good? And we'll get onto that later. It should be quick though. If you like your nerdy engine details, you'll be pleased to know that this has got the same crank as the M4 GT3 race car. So you can say, oh, I've got a race car engine, sort of. And actually part of the cylinder head is 3D printed, which has allowed them to do some slightly more complicated shapes than they could do normally. So yeah, it's a futuristic M engine.
There's no doubting that the M3's new face is a bit controversial, to say the least, but it's all functional because the new engine in this car runs at higher temperatures, higher pressures and all that kind of stuff. It needs more cooling, hence the massive snout now with horizontal slats rather than vertical ones that we're used to seeing on the M3. These ducts here cool the brakes and you get carbon ceramics as an option to save 15 kilos overall on the car. And yeah, it is snouty. There's no two ways about it. And obviously with the UK number plate, it kind of chops it in half a bit. The track is 40mm wider than on the old M3 and the actual footprint of the car has grown fairly substantially over the old M3, both in width and in length. So it's more square on the road, which hopefully will make it a bit less of a handful than the previous one. Now obviously you can get an M3 or you can get an M4, which is the coupe version. It's the yellow one over there. The M3's actually got slightly more punched out rear haunches than the M4, I think, because the 3 Series is a narrower car than the 4 Series is standard, but hey, there we go. I think the M3 has a nicer stance. Let's talk about brakes. Brake calipers, you can get a choice of black, red or blue now, which is very exciting stuff. You get 19-inch wheels at the front, 20s at the back, and there's a lightweight option, and you can get a super sticky semi-slick tyre if you go for that. You get a carbon roof on both of them, and yeah, this is quite a prominent side skirt. Looks like part of an aftermarket body kit, but it's all right. Let's look at the back. Here at the back, it's fairly standard M3, to be honest. You've got quad exhaust tips, which are now 100mm in diameter, which is bigger than the old gen. You've got a 480-litre boot. You get 430-litre one on the M4. It's a reasonable size. It looks much the same as the regular 3 Series, and it's electrically operated, which is not how I used it. This car's got the optional carbon pack, so you've got a carbon lower bit on this rear diffuser, and you've got a carbon lip spoiler here as well. And it's actually quite cool. There's a little cutout in the spoiler, and that matches the two kind of strakes across the carbon roof. So it's all kind of harmoniously designed when you look at it from this angle, at least. The back seats are pretty spacious. I've got decent headroom, decent knee room, and actually it's quite weird being able to see through the back of the front seat with these carbon buckets. If you were much taller than me, I guess your knees might hit the back of the front seat and it's not very comfortable because it's carbon fiber, but I'm 6'3", and it's fine. I've got 2 USB-Cs, air vent controls, and it's pretty standard. One thing I would say is this car's obviously got light cream leather, and it's already marked from my jeans and from tripods and things like that. So I don't know if it's the hardest wearing colour. I would just stick with the black seats, to be honest. It's going to be harder wearing. Or if you're feeling very brave and don't mind the residual values, you could go for the crazy Yasmarina blue and yellow ones. They're quite tasty in a sort of swimming shorts kind of way.
The interior of the new M3 and M4 is pretty nice. Obviously it's based on the standard 3 Series and 4 Series, but the first thing you notice are, in this car at least, the carbon backed bucket seats. They're an option, they're part of a £7,000 pack, although they are available on their own. You get this little carbon fibre bit between your legs, which I think is removable by a clip underneath, and there are certainly harness holes at the back and the sides, and someone from BMW might have said that that's probably because there's going to be a model that uses harnesses coming further down the line. You heard it here first. You get the embossed M gear shifter from the M8. You get steering wheel with the M paddle, so you can choose your preset driving modes and just flick between them at ease. You've got carbon fibre bits on the wheel and on the centre console. It bongs at you. But yeah, these carbon fibre bits, they're standard here in the UK because everyone spec'd them last time when they were an option, so they just threw them in. I mean, you pay for them, but they're in the price. You get the big infotainment screen, which is now just turned off very handily. It's iDrive, it's very good, it's very easy to use. Digital driver's display like on the M5, it's a little bit customizable, but it's very clear, very easy to use. Massive head-up display, that's also standard. Yeah, kind of everything you want is included. It'd be interesting to try the normal seats because, as I will say in the driving bit, these are a bit marginal if you're a little bit tubby like me. But yeah, it's good. It's good. The seats are very nice. I would go for them if they fit you. They're expensive, but worth it. Sorry for the up close and personal shaky cam footage, but I want to talk about the steering wheel because it's really nice. It isn't too chunky. It's a little bit girthy there, but it's got carbon fibre paddles as standard. I don't know if you can see them, but they're really tactile and really rather lovely. They don't have the crispest of actions, but that's fine. It's just nice. They've got dimples on the back to kind of guide where your hands go, and they feel very pleasant. How rare. It's just nice. Sorry, I just wanted to show you that because how often do you get nice paddles? Not very. Right, enough of that inside guff. Let's take the new M3 for a drive. It is so wet. We're not going to be getting any mad acceleration times today, I don't think. Anyway, foot on the brake, red engine start button, and the radio has come on, probably because I did a hand gesture. We know how BMW likes to do that. Gear stick across into drive. Let's go. First thing you notice when you climb in is that these option carbon bucket seats are actually really firm on the bolsters, so you almost have to climb over them to get into the car. I'm in Sport Plus mode, so it's probably a bit noisy. Let me just stick it in Sport so you can hear me for a bit. Yeah, my first impressions, I've been driving this car for about an hour now, are that it is way less scary to drive than the old M3. I'm all about being honest about my level of driving skill. I drove the old M3 at Bruntingthorpe on the runway there when I used to work at Carwow, and I drove it gently out onto the runway and accelerated in third gear, and it spun up and went slightly sideways, and it was dry, and I wasn't expecting that. It was a spiky car, and over the generations it did get a bit better and a bit more compliant. This is so much easier to drive quickly. Obviously it's pissing down, so I've not been absolutely caning it, but I've been able to floor it in second and third gear, and yeah, you get a lot of wheel spin, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to kill you. It's compliant, it works with the road. Now I have just said compliant. With the suspension in comfort mode, you still get the sense that this is a very firm car. However, the actual damping is very good. The way it kind of rounds off the corners of bumps and things like that, it's nice, and it lets you drive it down a B road pretty much with full confidence, especially in that front end. Front axle on M3s has always been impressive, and here's no different. You turn in, even in the pissing wet, and you've actually got enough feedback through the wheel to turn it in without worrying it's going to wash wide, and it doesn't. Not had any understeer, even cavemanning it around some roundabouts, like going, ugh. It's just
Yeah, I'm surprised actually. I'm surprised. I looked at the weather today and thought, today is my last day on earth driving an M3 and that, but actually, do you know what? It's been absolutely fine. Sure, it struggles to put its power down in second, third and fourth gears, but it doesn't scare you. It doesn't kick sideways. It just, you get the traction control, or you get the sense through your pants that you're breaking traction with the back wheels, and you can moderate the throttle. It's good. It's very good. Yeah, 0 to 60 on this is officially, well, 0 to 62 is 3.9 seconds. I'm not going to be getting anywhere near that today. If you get the, whatever the package is, you can raise the speed limiter to 180 miles an hour, should you need to. Otherwise, it's 155 miles an hour, as with other German cars. But yeah, I'm impressed by the steering. I'm impressed by the confidence you get in the chassis. Obviously, it's biblically fast. Yeah, it is phenomenally fast. Even low down, the mid-range is fat with a capital PH. From 3,000 RPM, it just hammers onwards, frankly, and it's absurd, and I like it. Yeah, whether it works as a family car, yeah, I think even in comfort mode, you'll be getting some questions from the passenger seat or from the back seats. Why is it so bumpy? But as a driver's car, it's perfectly tolerable. What else do you need to know? I've talked about the interior. I've talked about carbon fiber penis tray between your legs. I would say these seats they're marginal. If you are much fatter than me, and I'm 6'3" and 15 stone, you are going to feel a bit pinched in these, so you might want to go with the standard seats rather than these optional carbon sports buckets. It's definitely a thin person's seat, put it that way. It's a lovely car to drive, it's less intimidating, and it's still rapid. It's a very good M3 as a driver's thing, apart from the sodding gesture control, but hey, what's new? One thing that's new for this M3 is the ability to switch the brake feel between comfort and sport. Now, comfort is a little bit soft and sport feels like what the brake pedal should feel like, so I would just leave the brakes in sport mode and have done with it. It's a novel thing, I guess, but I've never felt the need to change my brake pedal feel in a car. Thank you, Mr. Van Man. Now, obviously you talked about the handling, about the confidence in the front end. I'm not going to be talking about how it slides or using the 10-stage traction control, because I'm going to be leaving it in 10. Have you seen the weather? It's ridiculous. So go and check out Chris Harris or something like that, who can actually slide a car properly. And they'll tell you all about, I'm sure, the wonderful balance of the car as it slips into the salad creamy heaven of oversteer. Does it sound good? Yeah, it does. It sounds very 6-cylindery, as you would expect, which is nice to have that sophisticated noise coming from under the bonnet. It's not a particularly evocative noise, it's not yowly, it's just a bit muted, to be fair. But, you know, it's there. It's just not as feral as a C63 or anything like that. Or even now from a Giulia Quadrifoglio, that sounds a lot more, well, raughty than this, for want of a better word. Look, I'm about to go from a 30 into a 60. Let's have some Sport Plus second gear action. Ready? Let's spinning up, third gear, spinning up. I mean, yeah, that's slightly faster than 60 miles an hour. Do you see what I mean? I wasn't fighting it. It did just go, and the electronics were keeping the power in check and not doing anything scary. There we go. Right, in the interest of doing something comprehensively for the first time in my life and on this channel, I'm now in the M4 to see if it drives differently, and it doesn't, to be honest. It feels exactly the same, I just don't think it looks quite as good as the M3. I've had some flapjack for lunch, so I'm feeling a bit braver. So I'm in M dynamic mode, which lets you do things like that without the fear of death. The roads are still very wet, and what I would say, with everything in Sport Plus, you can still nail it, and it doesn't really bite you at any point. It still just spins up a bit, but goes in a straight line. In M dynamic mode, it's still got your back, but will let you spin the rears for a lot longer, and it means you can do things like that out of junctions, off roundabouts, round corners. You can do little slides. It's not scary. It's definitely looking out for you still.
which is good because I have the driving talent of an ant. Yeah, my overriding impression of the M3 and M4 is a car that's a lot more user-friendly than it used to be. It's a lot easier to go quickly in, and even in the wet, it's not that intimidating, yet it can still play the hooligan. Kind of does all the things you want it to do, really. It's just a better car. There we go. Back to you, Tim, for an outro.
Right, so that's the end of my day with the M3. Sorry about the weather, sorry it's been a waste of your time because it's been so wet. The British weather, as usual, is about as helpful as a cling film loincloth. Anyway, the new M3 and M4, what do I think about it? Well, it's pretty impressive, to be fair. The chassis is actually the most remarkable thing. It's not scary even in the wet. It's rapid, proper rapid. The engine has still got that interesting 6-cylinder thing, but it's not as soulful as the engine in a Giulia Quadrifoglio. And the looks are a bit challenging, and at 70 odd grand, it's quite expensive. But as a package with those bucket seats, it does feel like a proper driver's M car, and it's right up there, in my estimation, with the M2 competition. It feels like BMW is back on form with this. We shouldn't have worried, really. If you can get over the looks, it's one of the best M3s that I can remember. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit my bell, and I'll see you somewhere that's not wet soon. Please, God, help me.
I must confess to making a bit of a mistake. The whole time I've been driving this car, I've just realised that, well, you might be wondering, Tim, do you have a banana in your pocket? I do. That's my breakfast, and I forgot to eat it, and it's probably been cutting a weird shape in my pocket for all of the driving bits of this video. I'm sorry. But hey, at least I haven't turned the M3 into a banana-shaped object, because it gives me confidence in the wet. Yeah.